Okay, quick intro, hopefully. So I'm really, really excited about this one. So fortuitous how I found my guest, Erin. I had Googled a quote I had heard a few times on sobriety calls from the show Louder Milk, which I've never seen. I definitely need to. Relates to sobriety, I do believe. And the quote is, "Hurting yourself is easy. It is living that is hard." So I Googled that, and one of the top matches was Erin's blog, Random Naked Thoughts. Hope I get that right. And so I found her, and she was on there saying, quoting right off the bat, I think it was the name of the blog title, and she said that's her new favorite show, and it is effing brilliant. And I loved it. I loved her blog. I read some of the other ones related to dating. I was like, I need her as a guest. So it was the first time. This is my, I don't know, 10th blog or so, 10th podcast. First stranger, I reached out to her. I just emailed her. She replied and said, sure. And I thought, man, I haven't even released this thing yet. She doesn't know anything about it, but she was great. And it's funny that she swore at the beginning of her blog because that came up before we film. I asked my guests not to swear because my marketing advisor said it's bad for the algorithm. And so you'll see a few times where it might be beeped out. You might hear her apologize. It only happened about 3 times, but she's definitely in the swearing club. So, but she is a pro guest. I've loved all my guests, but they were more friends from sobriety, and it was like friends talking. This one, I really did what I hope to do long term, which is interview professionals, experts, celebrities, and really prepare a lot for them, a la Howard Stern. No matter what you think about him, he's one of the best interviewers in the world, and he's super crazy prepared. And it was funny listening back to this, which we filmed in the summer. It is now almost the end of January 26. We filmed this 7-8 months ago. So it was as if listening for the first time. In particular, I think I actually can tell I'm doing a great job listening on here, but there was a lot I missed, particularly all her facial expressions. So I hope those of you who are listening might consider watching on YouTube, not to help the views or anything. They're paltry. But it is phenomenal because I think I surprised her with my preparation. I know I surprised myself, and I should even hopefully people notice on their own, but I was really proud of myself, and it's just a great interaction. I was also proud. A few of the previous ones, I thought I went talking too much, and but no, it was, I think, a perfect exchange. And I love, she's an AA'er. My previous guests I've known through my online sobriety communities, which are similar to AA, but without the 12 steps and the religious aspect. So I didn't fully get into that. I definitely need to get her back on, get into AA, but I love it. She talks about the inventory a lot, and certainly she knows all about doing the work, which is a huge part of AA, and service, which is one of the reasons she was happy to be a guest. So it's so good. I'm so proud of this, and it's for both men and women. It really applies. I think we get off kind of gossiping about coldplay-gate. I worked for that CEO, spoiler alert, and it was perfect. That was amazingly fortuitous as well because I've done a YouTube video talking about it, and she did a blog on it. So we talk about it a lot in this video, but I think it's great. And a lot of it is speculation. Keep that in mind. And whether it's accurate or not, it applies to so many other relationships. So I think women and men will appreciate this. And since we filmed this, and only in the last month or so, the woman of the other side of coldplay-gate, Andy was the CEO, and then his HR head was Kristen. She actually spoke out and said she was separated at the time. She implied they both were, and they actually bonded over their separations. He, in a couple months after this happened, was actually in People magazine, was spotted with his wife, Andy, with both wearing their rings. So, and I speculate on here, perhaps this could lead to better things, especially through therapy, the wonders of therapy. So she's definitely separated, maybe now divorced, but and talked about just how vilified she was, which we get into on here, and I think is abhorrent. And judgers, people that judge and vilify, just drive me bananas. I gained so much empathy through this process. Same thing. If you don't like anything we say on this, feel free to politely comment. We're not perfect, and but I think this is such a great discussion. So I do believe, with no further ado, I will say about my own personal community. Could be delayed again. I had a great conversation with a marketing professional yesterday who also has ADD, and she understood a lot of people say just launch, but she really said you are not ready. So I will update that more for sure on the next one. And I guess that will do it. Then, yeah, I already alluded to it, but listening back to this was like listening to it for the first time, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope you do as well. Thanks. Okay, welcome to the Cappy Hour podcast. My guest today is Erin Schaden. Hi, Erin.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent. So, Erin is my first guest that I have not known prior through a sobriety community. I somehow came across her blog called Naked Random Thoughts, and I absolutely loved one in particular. And I just shot her an email and asked if she'd want to be a guest. And she agreed without even knowing much about me, which I appreciate. So great to have you, Erin.
I like risk takers.
Awesome. And so what about, I know about you as you are a lawyer, a family divorce lawyer, I think 29 maybe, going on
30 years, yeah.
And about the same length of sobriety? How many years on that?
Yeah, 30 years. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Oddly, I got sober like 6 weeks before I graduated from law school. So
wow.
Yeah, crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
It is.
Well, I mentioned to you, although I would love to, and we may do several parts, go too much into it. I love just getting right in this recovery talk, but yeah, give a little quick background on that. How severe? I know from your blog, I mean, not only alcohol, but drugs as well. And yeah, so maybe.
Drugs. I mean, I always include them because like I definitely smoked weed and, did those kinds of things. But I'm kind of an anomaly in my age group because like I never did coke. I never did any of the other stuff. Like, and mostly because I know, like, I'm a heroin addict. I just never did it. I'm a coke addict. I'm a meth addict. I just never did it. Right. Like if I did it today, I would be gone in short order. I have absolutely no doubt about that. And I do everything alcoholically. Like I do, exercise, food, shopping, dating, like all of it. Like I still, to a degree, like I gotta like turn it down. Like my natural state is more, give me more. I want more. Right. And so I didn't go to rehab. I just, I started drinking relatively young. I was like 12 and a half, I think. Started drinking young, came from an alcoholic family, long line of alcoholics in my family. So drinking was just like what you did. And, it was really fun. It was just like, recovery kind of talks about, like, it was a lot of fun in the beginning. I personally don't think I would have survived adolescence had I not found it. And when I did, and it was great fun. And then it was like fun with some consequences. And, then at the end, 13 years later, it was just like instant wreckage. I just woke up every day and it was just Groundhog Day. And, on the outside, I grew up, if you make the outside look okay, you're okay. You just have to convince everybody else you're okay and you're okay. And I was so not okay. But, I was working 5 different jobs. I had 3 different boyfriends in 3 different states that didn't know about each other. I was in, grad school. I was doing all of these things. I wasn't doing any of those things well. I was doing all of them with a level of toxicity that like frightens me today when I think back on it. But, and I had just this moment of clarity, one night after, certainly not the worst night drinking, but it was a bad night. And the next day, like there was this voice, like this still quiet voice, right? And it was just like, Erin, how many times are you going to do the same thing over and over again, expect something different to happen? And I just knew I was done. I didn't know I was done, but I knew in that moment that I was done and I was willing to ask for help, which I had never been willing to do before, and then, I went to 12-step stuff and I've been here ever since.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So that is impressive. And at some point, I think we can do an hour alone on AA versus the online sobriety communities I've been in, but I want to hit that later if we have time. But it is impressive that you did it so young. So you would have been around 25, right?
Yep, I was 25. Um, Probably had been absolutely drinking alcoholically for at least 20 years. Right. I mean, maybe 20 years, at least 5 years, at least 5 years. Sorry. Um, I'm like preoccupied with my AirPods. And so, yeah, I feel really lucky, that I was done. I don't think I knew that I was done, but I came in, I was not happy. I was angry. I didn't think I belonged in a 12-step program. But I stayed for some reason. I think I was more terrified of what was going to happen to me if I went back out there. So.
Nice. Did you have a true or a big rock bottom incident?
Well, I got into a fight with a hockey team, so in a bar, and got my ass kicked. So
Oh,
yeah,
I
I
was gonna say
was, I
you were.
was, I was definitely like a barroom brawler person. I was the life of the party until somebody pissed me off. And I've never been in a fight with a woman in my life, but I fought men all the time, and usually throwing the first punch, and just apparent. I was in a blackout, so I don't remember. It was told to me by my one girlfriend. Which we both now have been sober 30 years. So, I think she works a good program. So I'm pretty sure. So she kind of filled in the details, but apparently I was talking to a ref and I was pissed off about a call that he made during the game. And he said something snarky, and then I apparently didn't like it. And so then I punched him, and then the hockey team had the refs back. And anyway, I came out of the blackout as the bouncers pitched me down a flight of stairs. So yeah, so that was my bottom.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, all right. Well, then let me jump into it. So
Sure.
there's a million places to start, but I wish I could have read all of your blogs in prep for this, but
Oh
the
my
one
God.
that jumped out was the recent one, which is a topic everybody loves, and hopefully well, no matter when this airs, they'll remember the coldplay-gate. You just wrote
Oh, yes,
a
yes.
blog on that, and guess what? Guess who worked for Andy Byron, the CEO?
Oh, wow.
Okay, yes, yeah. In 2008, I was a long time in the data center outsourcing business, and essentially we had data centers, and companies would put all their servers in our data centers. And so Andy hired me. He was the director of sales, and he always said he was going to be a CEO someday, and he was a slick talking salesman. Let me tell you.
Well, and he was. He was a CEO.
Yes. And, fun fact, I didn't always know that, but a lot of CEOs are just former sales guys. And that really is a
Oh,
big
yeah.
part of their job is they're the ultimate closers that sales guys bring in on meetings.
Yep.
So yeah, Andy was, you could tell he could look you right in the eye like he was your best friend, but you just knew there was kind of an empty soul in there. And, I highly suspect he's never really been in therapy and needs to do it a lot of work. He never burned me personally, but I just kind of always had that feeling. And a guy came out and actually said in Andy's last company, he got his employees to give a lot of their own money. This guy lost 50 grand. The company ended up going under. You got companies to invest, employees to invest in, and then he walked away with millions. And these people all lost their money. So I guess it's all to say that, who knows? Your blog talked about how people, condemning him, judging him. One guy not only called him a bad husband, but a bad father, a news anchor, but how indignant people are. And you said exactly what I would say. These things happen affairs happen all the time. I personally even know another worked VP of HR that had an affair with the CEO. Exact
Well,
same thing.
it's kind of part of the job description of a CEO. Like, what? A CEO of a big company cheating? Oh my God, I've never heard of that before. It's just like, come on. Like, and to your point earlier, I mean, I don't know Andy. I didn't even know who his company was before this scandal happened or whatever. So I'm not saying anything to disparage him in any way, shape, or form. But it's like, to be successful in today's world, there's a level of narcissism, there's a level of psychopathy that has to go with it. Like, you can't be overly concerned with other people and their value and feelings if you want to make it successful. I'm not saying that's right. That's not how I do business. But I'm saying that, if you look at the top echelons of our society, very successful financially, probably not the best people in the world. Now, there are some good ones out there, right? For sure. It's not everybody, condemning everybody. But I think that the traits that you have to have that are going to make you successful as a CEO do not translate well into interpersonal, intimate, vulnerable relationships, right? Marriage, for example, right? So skills as CEO, slick talking, not afraid to kind of ruffle feathers, not afraid to, kind of be self-interested, all that kind of stuff. Great skills for running a company. Okay. Cause you can't care about everybody's feelings. You're never going to get anywhere. Right. But in a marriage, kind of important skill to like really care and like listen and value this other person. So
Absolutely. And there's so much else to unpack here. I will say is on the father side, once I was in the office on a Saturday morning, being the go-getter I was, and he came in with his two boys who were fairly young at the time, and he was bringing them to a Red Sox baseball game. So again, for this guy to call him a bad father, and who even knows on the husband side, they could have had an arranged situation, as you know, your business. A lot of people stay married for the sake of the kids, right? But there's nothing.
Or they have like a business relationship. Well, the other thing too is like I think if what everybody's putting up on social media, his wife posted, if she actually really posted that, I don't think that they had an arrangement.
But actually, that wasn't that statement. There was a fake statement by him, and then there was a fake statement by her. If it's the same one I saw, it even referenced the fake statement. She said, "Oh, and my husband quoted Coldplay." The fake statement quoted that. So I don't think she's spoken at all, actually. I'm 99.
Well, it's kind of too bad because as a divorce attorney, I thought what I loved about that statement, even though it was fictitious.
It was well written. Yes, it was a great statement. Sorry.
What I loved about it was so often I see in my professional life that the person who's cheated upon, right, feels the shame. Sometimes the person who's cheating feels the shame, but more often than not, it's the person who's been humiliated, who's not behaved badly at all, and they're very embarrassed, and they kind of take on, and it hurts them in ways, of course, that are life lasting, right? Like they have a very hard time getting over the betrayal. And so what I liked about the fake statement that she didn't issue, was how much she was like, I'm going to go on. I'm not talking about that. This is about me. And at the same time, like, there's so much from my perspective as a divorce lawyer and coach that, regardless of whether you come out of, you find out that your spouse is cheating on you and you come out of the gate destroyed or just like, guns a-blazing, right? You're going to flip flop, right? Nobody locks in, right? Like, you may come out of the gate destroyed and then move on, which is, I think, honestly, the better path. Like, allow it to destroy you, grieve the loss, feel the feelings. Don't medicate it with drugs and alcohol. Don't medicate it with another affair or relationship, compulsive dating, compulsive eating, whatever. Like, don't do those things. Feel your feelings, right? Get some help, get some therapy, work through the stuff so that you can bounce it when your divorce is over. You can bounce into a new life. It's amazing for you, right? Whereas I think people that come out like right out of the gate, like guns a-blazing, really, really angry, pissed off, locked and loaded, like, that grief is coming for you. The anger is a cover for all of the things that you feel, right? Like justifiable anger, right? Like, it may be justifiable, but there's a lot of sadness. There's a deep well of sadness that's underneath all that anger. And so my experience in life, you can't outrun grief, regardless of what the grief is coming from. It's a divorce, it's a infidelity, whatever, loss of a spouse, death, whatever it is, you have to at some point in time grieve it, right? Or it's like a poison. it's going to erode. It's like a cancerous thing inside you that's going to eat you alive, right? And reduce your vitality, your vibrancy, your life, right? So while it was like a, yeah, okay, power for her, I'm kind of glad that she didn't write it, because I think that it would be a strong statement, but at the same time, it would be very, I don't know. I think it would fall over into the anger side of things and not the grieving side. And so I hope she's, you know, feeling her feelings and is getting help and support to deal with the loss.
Yeah, she's reportedly held up in their Maine. They have a nice place up in Maine, and she's with her sister and some close family. And
Good.
the only statement I think she did make was I think this one's pretty much verified, that she took her married name off of her Facebook and then deleted it. What's interesting is, did she leave that on for a certain period of time so people could see it and then deleted her account? Because you know what I mean? People saw that before she deleted the account. But yeah, I think that was statement enough that she's unhappy.
I feel for her. I mean, this is not easy. I lived in Washington, D.C., regardless of where you are politically. I lived in Washington, D.C., where the whole Bill Clinton thing was going on. And, I mean, Hillary Clinton is definitely like a catalyst for a lot of hate. But like, regardless of how you feel about her, I mean, how humiliating every day to have your personal life, your marriage on the front page of every newspaper in the world, right? Like I felt, regardless of how you feel about her in any other way, shape, or form as another human being, like that could not have been easy, right? So it's bad enough when your spouse cheats on you and you find out, right? That revelation is terrible. But when it happens in such a public way, where you're now an instant celebrity over something that you would never want to be celebrated, right? It's horrible. So I'm glad that she's holed up in a compound and with people who love and support her. And I hope that she, gets what she needs and is beginning the healing process,
Absolutely. Yeah. And you went exactly where I was going to go. It's amazing. I was going to say, first, your point about CEOs and their personalities. It's the same presidents. I've always said JFK was hardly an angel. He's married to a great woman, but supposedly a philanderer. Bill Clinton, absolutely. And I was going to ask about, is Meghan, Andy's wife, more upset or purely upset about the embarrassment factor? Didn't care about the infidelity. They might have had a don't ask, don't tell situation or what have you, but just like Hillary, I'm convinced they had an arrangement and she was just mad. Well, it was abhorrent that she was a sentient employee, but also that he got caught. Like, Bill, you idiot.
Right. You idiot. Right. I don't think from the reaction that I saw on, the video, that is not an action of somebody in an open marriage or with an agreement. That is a reaction. I mean, he literally ducked and then never returned. Where did he go? Like,
I know, 100%. But I got to jump in. Don't forget, he could have even been single, and that would have been, as long as she was married, the whole disclosure at work thing. I more think was instantly like, oh my God, I'm fired, because
well, and so the thing is like, but here's my problem, and this is going to be controversial, so I'll just get out in front of it initially. Like, why was he fired? Why did he have to resign? Is he doing a bad job at being CEO? Because then he should be fired, right? Did he violate truly a company policy that was written and understood, right? But that was my whole blog post, was like, we're acting like this is some hugely immoral thing that is a complete aberration in our society, right? It isn't. I'm telling you, as a divorce attorney, 75 or more % of my divorce cases involve some form of infidelity. It's how most people leave their marriages. It is. Like, it's not good. I don't recommend it. It causes way more damage than need be. It's horrible. It creates litigation costs. It hurts the kids. Like, it's bad. Don't do it. Bad. Don't do it. If you're unhappy, get out. Right. But it's like, if he violated company policies, right? It was like, you aren't allowed to do this, and he knew it and he violated it. Okay, I get his resignation. But I think I go back, like I brought up Clinton, so I'm going to go there too. Like, Bill Clinton's biggest issue, I've always maintained with that whole thing, was that what he should have said was, this is none of your business. This is none of your business. What I do in my personal life is none of your business. End of story, and stop talking about it. But instead, he let the spin doctors in Washington convince him to take these other positions, which then proved him to be a freaking giant liar. Which, of course, sitting in the main office, especially back then, we didn't want a liar in the Oval Office. We didn't want somebody, we wanted someone with good moral character. I'm going to say again, I don't think you really get to be president of the United States by having a completely, Jimmy Carter. I think Jimmy Carter is probably one of the only people that have ever held our highest office that was truly a moral, spiritual person who walked the walk as well as talked the talk, right? Which is why he didn't last very long. Like, that's not what our society rewards, right?
Right. Yeah.
You have to be a certain level of cutthroat.
Yeah. And I don't want to spend time on Clinton other than to say that but I assume you acknowledge if she didn't work in the White House, it would have been nobody's business. The fact she was he was her superior. I mean, I think it was kind of, he was
Absolutely.
So he was accountable.
Absolutely. And she was much younger and he definitely had a position of power, and everything else. But at the same time, again, Bill Clinton is not the only person in Washington that's ever done that. Like, so this happens all the time. And so I think that, it's kind of like, if you happen to ride the political tide badly, then you're vilified for it. But if you can kind of fly under the radar, I mean, I think that the Me Too movement absolutely showed that, like, these women weren't like coming up and being like, well, this just happened to me. These women were coming forward going, this happens all the time, and it has forever. And just because the Me Too movement happened, it brought attention to it and hopefully righted some wrongs, but it's still going on. Like, it didn't stop. Like, it's still prevalent in our society. So I guess it's just, I guess my issue is the way that we apply it and who we choose to vilify and who we don't choose. If it's morally wrong, it's morally wrong. There's no caveats to that, right? If we all agree as a society that cheating on your spouse is morally wrong, then but we have a cognitive dissonance with it, right? Where it's like, well, it's bad if the CEO of Astronomer does it, but I'm doing, this person, Joe Blow over here or Jane Doe over here, like, they're doing it, but they can, I don't know. There's just a disconnect, I guess is what I'm saying.
So yeah, hypocrisy is everywhere. It's just like Utah being one of the leading porn sites, it's ridiculous. But so yes, I'm with you in that camp. People vilifying him just for having an affair, it's ludicrous. But I will say, Clinton technically should have been fired. I didn't have the position then, but I heard Monica recently on the Call Her Daddy podcast, and he absolutely, took advantage of her in terms of the position, and he should have been fired for that. And the reason Andy was fired, I believe, having read this, I just know you have to disclose if you're having a relationship with an employee.
Well, then he violated the policy. You can't
disclose it when you're both already married. So now they still have the option to enforce that or not, as a lawyer. They must have just decided it wasn't worth the PR hassle, etc. Even though, as you alluded to, this has been great PR for them. If I was a sales guy, I would have made 1 million calls that day and every day since, because if someone's calling on me, they're with Astronomer.
I didn't know who Astronomer was until this happened. Never even heard of him.
And the interim CEO who already worked there, he already made a joke about it, just I think about the good PR.
Of course.
That's the best way to handle it, by the way. Whole nother topic. But the best way to handle controversy, criticism, you got to just laugh about it. I mean, it would never happen. That's going to feel stupid even saying this. But ultimately, that family, he's got 2 boys. They're college age, and the wife, they should all get together and say, Dad effed up, and almost make a funny TikTok about it, which I know will never happen. But if she was only mad at him for that reason, that he got caught, basically, because you mentioned his look. His look could have been just the fact, they're job related. Because people just become.
I don't want to gloss over, her husband and his wife. I mean, regardless of whether it was like an open kind of thing and they just got caught and then there's the public embarrassment about it. I mean, they've been injured, right? through no fault of their own, they've now been thrust into this very public spotlight, that is hot and bright and sears, right? And their whole lives have now been upended, and due to other people's behavior. And I don't know, I just have compassion, right? Like, I also am not going to go to the other side and vilify the two people caught cheating. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this
Right.
is, you don't like it, then change the world you live in, because this is the world that we live in, right? Everybody's got, I mean, if you're single, you got 27 things going on at the same time that you're not being honest about. If you're married, you're probably stepping out in some kind of way. I think it's, the percentage is very high that you probably are, and very small that you're not. I don't want to dishonor the people that are holding to their vows and sticking to their deals. But I guess, as always, like, I see both sides, and I feel compassion for everybody, especially the innocents, which are the kids, right, of these two people, right? Like, you're an adult, you make decisions, you have to pay the consequences, but these kids are now paying consequences for nothing that they did wrong, right? They didn't do anything wrong. They just happened to be the children of these parents, and now, you know, they're the butt of jokes. They can't walk down the halls of school without being talked about. I'm sure there's plenty of TikToks and like that. Sorry, Cass. Sorry. I was really trying to keep it clean. Going on, right? Like, so anyway,
Yeah.
it's just sad when a family implodes, regardless of whether it's because of infidelity. It is hard, it is sad, and it is life altering, right? And so, like, I guess that's kind of my message, is like, let's all kind of try to remember that, and like, let's just, you know, stop talking about it. Like, let's let it die. Like some other news story, Ozzy Osbourne died, which I'm actually very upset about, and Hulk Hogan and Malcolm Jamal Warner, like, all like went boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
focus on those.
I
I
only
don't know.
learned I only learned about Theo yesterday. Someone put in the comments like it happens in threes. Someone even brought up a fourth person that I hadn't heard of, but yeah,
Uh,
Theo's around.
Ray Mangione,
Yeah, who's
he
he?
died. A jazz musician.
I don't even know if that was a name. I wish I took a screenshot, but oh my God, still so much to discuss here because
Okay.
yeah, you brought up the point of yeah, compassion. I now love to talk about how we need to have empathy for criminals. And even we call Andy the criminal behavior. Some neighbor called it disgusting, and it's you even pointed out they did look like they were in love. I mean, a lot of affairs, you know from your work, Rob, they actually fall in love. I kind of jokingly say, hey, if you marry the person you cheated with, you're off the hook, because and it comes from it. I mean, you'll actually love this quick story. I have a friend who she found out her husband was having an affair because he sent her an affectionate text and she knew he would never do that. And yep, he meant to send it to his mistress. He said, oh, we should be cuddling by the fire right now. And she was like, well, affair. Knew instantly. But now it's like 8 years later, he's still with that person. So, yeah, they did look.
Is that? How sad is that? Like, so often I feel like marriage is the place that love and passion and sexual excitement goes to die. And it just seems like we've just so bastardized like this institution, right? Like, we've tried to change it into this other thing, and we're just failing, right? We're just failing. And so many people are unhappy, and they don't feel close to their spouse. And I mean, and I hear that all the time, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times, like, um something that the person purchased. I'll give you a quick story. Like, when my ex-husband and I were together, we used to belong to this like athletic club, and it was a pool, and everybody would go with their kids and everything else. And we saw this couple, and they were there with their kids all the time and everything. And I looked at my husband at the time, and I said, yeah, they're going to get a divorce. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, yeah, they're getting a divorce. And he goes, well, who told you that? I'm like, oh, nobody told me that. I just can tell. And he's like, what do you mean you can tell? And I said, she doesn't look him in the eye. She's lost a whole bunch of weight. She rolls her eyes every time he says anything. Her body language to him is completely cold. They have absolutely zero connection whatsoever. This is my observation. And he's like, oh, stop it. They've been together. They're like a big couple. Sure enough, like a couple months later, divorce. And you can see it. And they've done studies and everything else, Gottman's studies about like contempt. And unfortunately, I think that one of the primary relationship where I see contempt most is in the people that we marry, which is so sad. Right? Like, it's just, you found this person that you think you're going to live the rest of your life, and something goes so horribly awry that you end up in this place where all you feel is resentment and contempt and sometimes downright hatred for the other person. And it's like, what are we doing? How are we ending up here? We all start off with the best of intentions, and then we end up in this horrible place, So.
Yeah, I've always found it fascinating that someone can go from their wedding day to murdering, forgive the extreme example, but in those cases, they go from one to the other. It's so crazy. And actually on that note, because this will relate to everything I want to talk about, it was somehow brought up in some Instagram post I was reading about a guy that murdered, I think even dismembered his wife and his kids. Somehow, it happened a while ago, but it came up recently. And in the comments, they were like, just get a divorce. Why didn't he just get a divorce? And I rarely comment on things, but I said, you're trying to apply rational thinking to what clearly was a mental disorder. And I talk about that all the time with DUIs. Woman, a mayor in New Jersey, she got caught hammered driving with a 2-year-old and she got vilified. But it's like, you're applying rational thinking. Of course, she shouldn't have driven. She never would have wanted to. But that is a compulsion. This is alcoholism as a mental disorder. It's a chronic brain disease. It's the same thing as Alzheimer's, which everyone has empathy for and doesn't question it, but it's the opposite. Would you vilify an Alzheimer's patient who forgot your name? No. And it's the exact same treatment with alcoholics and everything else. And Andy, and I don't know, he didn't have a drinking problem that I know of, but he could have a drinking problem. He could have a sex addiction or even a love addiction. I love that term. And you mentioned, and I alluded to how happy they looked. They could have been in love. I actually think one saving grace for him is he wasn't with a young chippy, to use that word.
Yeah.
No? So people can at least attack him for that. Imagine how much worse it would be for all of them, including his wife, if he was with some 20-year-old.
It would just be very cliche. I mean, it would just be, but saying going back to the thing about empathy, I think that the difference between, about the empathy is that alcoholic and addicts' behavior seems so intentional, right? And I think we all buy into this delusion that there is a choice, that we have a choice, right? Because it seems like to people that don't have a problem, it's so simple. Just don't drink. Just don't drink, and unless you've ever had the problem of not being able to not drink, then you don't know what that would be like, right? You don't understand that there's this thing in the back of your mind that's like, maybe you could have a drink now. Maybe you could have a drink now. Maybe you need to have a drink now. What about now? What about now? Like that there's this thing that wakes up before you do that talks to you all day long. That's like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And so I think that they're never going to be able to understand. And also addicts and alcoholics behave so badly, right? Like we do horrible things to people that love us, and we maim sweet relationships, right? Our children, our spouses, our family, our communities, we make horrible decisions, right? So, and our behavior seems so intentional, even though it's not. I don't know one alcoholic or addict in my whole life that I've ever known that I believed was truly just a rotten human being. I think that they were tortured, right? And their solution to the torture was more torture, right? It's like we see connection through disconnection. Never going to work. It's never going to work, but we have flawed thinking, right? The thinking is flawed. And so we opt for these strategies that are never going to bring us what we want, but everything about us says that we know what we're doing, right? And that's why it's so hard for other people to look at our very intentionally seeming behavior and give us a pass or have some empathy for us, I think if you haven't ever walked the mile in the person's shoes, it's really hard to see kind of what they've gone through, right? But if you've ever suffered yourself, you see the torture.
Yeah. There's so many hypocrites in this world. Shouldn't even go there, but I got to throw out just an analogy. Abortion. To me, the only people with a say in abortion should be ones that have faced an unwanted pregnancy and then gone through with it, or at least the only people that should be pro-life, because until you've been there, you can't say for sure that you would.
I think that goes for anything. I think we can just make it a global thing. I mean, you don't know how you're going to react about cancer until you get it. You don't know how you're going to feel about heart disease until you have a heart attack. Like, you don't know how you're going to feel about anything. Really, it's great. I mean, parenting, I'll use that as an example. I was an amazing theoretical parent. I was amazing. I was perfect, right? And then I had them, right? Then they appeared in real life. And I, with my trauma and my, OCD and all of my things, had to parent these little beings, right? Like, and all of a sudden, all that theoretical things, the things that when I'm a mom, I'm going to do this, that, or the other thing. Guess what? All that stuff went out of the window. And so much of my behavior was driven by forces that I didn't even know existed, right? At the time. If there's one thing I could go back and do over again, is I would love to have seen the level of my trauma and how much that was going to impact negatively my children, right? Like, I did not know that, right? I only found that out through the parenting, right? And then got help for the stuff and continue, right? But it's like, we never know, right? But I don't think that we live in a culture today that is wants to see the whole picture. Like, we want 30-second sound bites. We want short things that we can grab onto, right? And I guess the thing that makes me probably most despondent about the world that we live in today is people like to be mean. Like, they like to get the snarky comment, and they like to get the dig. And it's I mean, I'll remember when I first started doing like social media kind of stuff, like I'd gotten Botox, and it didn't like go right up here, right? And there was like, I don't know, 400 comments about my bad Botox. Like, just mean, right? Like, I don't do it anymore, as you can see. But it was just like, why? Why did they feel the need to do that? I wasn't on there talking about Botox or what I looked like or anything. I was talking about divorce and families and relationships and love and all of that kind of stuff. Like, what did my face have to do with any of that? But like, they just loved to get the dig in, right? And I just thought it was funny. And I went on, and like you said, disarming. I was just like, yep. I said, I'm going to have to talk to my person about it. Thanks for the heads up, like, because, it didn't wound me, because I feel like I do a lot of work to stay balanced and centered. And my opinion about me is the most important thing about me, right? Like, how I feel and think about myself is the most important thing. So what you think about me is less important to me, because I know, I'm certainly not perfect at all. I make mistakes all the time. However, I really do try to show up and be a decent person on the planet. And sometimes I do a great job, and other times I don't at all, right? But it's still what I do or try to do every day, So
Yeah. I just did a YouTube on that, Erin. That is called emotional maturity.
Yeah, well,
because
most people that know me would never accuse me of being emotionally mature, though. My son tells me all the time, he's like, you're not 13. And I'm like, yeah, but in here, I really still am. Like, I really didn't really, yeah, I vacillate.
That's great. But yeah, emotional immaturity is when the input of others almost totally determines how you feel about yourself. You need others to determine your self-worth, your belonging, your self-esteem. So emotional maturity is not caring. And you said exactly what I said. You only need to care or impress yourself. And you also, I was almost going to say, you only need to fear judgment from yourself, but you shouldn't even judge yourself. It's a whole nother topic. But
well, I mean, I don't think judgment is the right word. Like, I definitely judge myself, but I try not to. Like, what I do is, like, every day I'm like, what can I do today to get up and be a better Erin than I was yesterday?
yes.
Right? Like, what can I do to evolve? What lesson have I not learned that I could work on today? How can I show up better? Right. And despite that intention being there every day, some days I get up and I do amazing. And I'm like, killed it. When I do my inventory at the end of the night, killed it. Yes. And other days I'm like, whoa, wow, way off the mark. Right. Yeah. And I guess what I say all the time is, like, when I first got in recovery, I had a 2x4, and every time I failed to meet my own standard or your standard, the 2x4 came out and I bludgeoned myself with it,
froze.
And now the 2x4 is retired. I don't bring it out anymore. It's retired in the wood pile. And now when I screw up, it's kind of like, oh, sweetie, again, really? Come on, we can do better than that, like, so this very critical, mean person that used to own dominion in my head now has turned into like this, like, hey, fell short, come on, we can do better. I, kind of forgive you for the, what you did, but like, what do we need? What do you need in this moment to do better tomorrow? Or, you know, in a little while. Right. So
Yeah.
it's hard, but I mean, and I get that that's not fun to look at. Right. I don't do a fearless and moral inventory every day because I want to. Like, it's not like it was not on my list of things to do. I'm a runner and a hider. Like, I like to just hightail it out of places. Right. I do it because if I don't, I'm going to die. Right. Like, it's not like, well, maybe I'll just be kind of a jerk. No, like, if I fail to examine Erin and what's motivating her, I'm going to die in a fiery crash after burning all of my relationships to the ground. Pretty swift motivator, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. All right. I got a bunch to throw in. And one is,
Okay.
yeah, the old Atomic Habits, James Clear, it's saying, become 1% better every day. You become 37% better over the course of a year. And yeah, a better word is impress. The only one you need to impress is yourself. And there is
Right.
some level of judgment. A friend brought that up. I mean, judging, America's Got Talent. I mean, judgment can be a good thing. Just saying, hey,
Yeah.
I've become a better person today. And that's why dating's a whole nother topic we could do hours on. But the best people to date are those in recovery, particularly advanced recovery, that have done the work.
Yeah. Okay. There you
Yeah,
go. The
done
caveat
the
that
work.
they've done
Yes,
the work.
dying to talk about the work with you, but yes, a woman in my sobriety circles was talking about, I don't want to date a drinker, not because they drink, but because they likely haven't done the work. She goes, and I said, boom. Women put in their dating profile, no addicts, which I get it. They don't want active drinkers or druggers, but they should actually put, I want a, you can say fully recovered addict, because doing the work is so key. Before I finish on that, I just want to say, you talked about alcoholics getting a bad rap because the behavior seems so intentional. And I try to remind people it's not. It is a compulsion. The very definition, it's the second definition of it, but it's an irresistible urge to behave in a certain way, especially against one's conscious wishes. So yes, you're throwing away everything. But the addiction assassin I mentioned, she likens it to spending 5 days in the desert. Someone offers you a bottle of water and says, do you want this? If you drink it, you're going to lose everything. What are you going to do? What is every one of those hypocrite bashers out there, whether they're bashing Andy or an alcoholic or even a worse criminal, which we can talk about, they're going to take the water. You're going to take the water after 5 days in a desert without water. Just like those people that don't know what it's like you alluded to. How about just your cell phones across the room? How long are you going to last without grabbing the cell phone? What if you're expecting an important text? What if you're expecting a life-depending text? Cancer results, whatever.
Right.
What are you going to do then? So that's what it's like for an alcoholic. It's not as easy as, just don't drink. So yeah.
Yeah. And on the dating thing, I mean, I don't know. I always jokingly say, like, if you get sober and in recovery and you want to date, like, the odds are good and the goods are odd, right? Like, I mean, the thing that was a big shocker to me is that there are people out there in the world that are not addicts that have done the work. It just wasn't work because they're not addicts. Like, they just like do the right thing for the right reason, like almost all of the time, right? Like, they don't need a 12-step program to tell them how to live life and not burn down the house. Like, they just get up every day and they go to work and they just are good, decent, honest people. Like, and I, like, having grown up in an alcoholic home and having like mostly alcoholics and drug addicts as friends, like, I didn't know that there were these people, like I've been on dates with people and they're like, yeah, I never really drank. I'm like at all? Ever? And they're like, no, it just didn't really appeal to me. I'm like, why? Like, why did that not appeal to you? Like, and they're not addictive personalities. They're just, I don't know, like, they just don't. But I think that, I guess, I don't, I've kind of reached the place where I think whether you're in recovery or out of recovery or in need of recovery or not in need of recovery, I think it's about, like, what steps are you taking to improve your ability to commune and relate and connect with other people, right? Um, and how interested are you in other people, in knowing who they are, right? Um, I've been on a couple of dates in, we'll call it, in the last 2 years. I'm just, it's been more recent than that, but the last year. And these people were generally not interested in me as a human being. They didn't care at all. Like, I was there for their agenda, right? They talked about themselves. They weren't, it didn't matter, right? They weren't interested in forming a connection with me. They were interested in developing a connection to me, right? Very different, very, very different. And there's a lot of chitter chatter on social media about, kind of like we're having like 1980s or 1990s expectations of relationships in 2025. And I think I can speak for myself. Yeah, I am. I absolutely do. I don't want to ghost people. I don't want to connect with 27,000 people at this, and try to maintain a connection, right? Like, I used to say when we first moved to California, I just was having a hard time. My kids were little, and I would say to my husband, I'd be like, I just want one friend, just one. I don't need 27. I just want one friend. And it's kind of like in today's world, like, I just want one person that gets me and I get them, and that we both agree that we're like going to delve into this ever evolving intimacy, right? Which is at times going to feel like a lot of work, and other times is going to feel really easy and light, right? But I want to do that with another person. I just don't really seem to be able to find anybody that feels the same way, that is attractive to me or me to them, right? And I think it's really hard, right? So I really think that it is about doing the work. But I think that in today's world, there's a lot of lip service to the work, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm doing the work. And then, you get in there and you look at their lives and you're like, and also I just want to say, like, I like the word discernment better than judgment, right? Because judgment applies this morality, right? Like, that's good, that's bad, whatever. Discernment is like more like, is that good for me or is that not good for me, right? Like, and I think that for me is more of what I try to bring to the table every day. Like, is this situation, this job, this person, this friendship, this whatever, this date, is this a good fit? Do I feel like I bring something to the table that's of value to this other person? And do I feel like that's then reciprocated, right? And that's discernment, knowing kind of that it's more nuanced than judgment. Judgment's just like, that's good, that's bad, right? I like it, I don't. Discernment is more like nuanced, I think.
All right. I like that. I like that. Roll with it. All right. Still so many things to throw out. One, you talked about how mean-spirited people are. And there was a woman, she's an influencer. She's also on the radio. And she was talking about mean comments on Instagram. And her co-host said, do you really think if someone doesn't care about themselves, they're going to care about you? And it's so true. And it's something I talk about all the time. There's so much self-loathing, particularly bringing it back to alcoholism. People have extreme self-loathing. I used to be one of those haters in the comment and super judgmental people and non-listeners. And recovery is really made all those so much better. I was that guy you just mentioned on the date doing all the talking. I thought I was brought up Irish Catholic family, but I identify way more as Irish. That's what they do, is small talk. You can't have a moment of silence. And that's how you entertain people, is by yapping their faces off. So I used to show up at dates with a list of topics where, looking back, I'm like, I should have had a list of questions, because I've learned the greatest gift you can give a woman is the act of truly listening.
Yeah. Or any person, like, giving of your attention, like, is and your presence, right? Your presence. And I certainly am not, I absolutely tend to be on the avoidant side of things. But I work on that, right? Like, I'm not like, oh, I'm avoidant, that's just the way I am. Like, that's not my calling. Like, once I spot it, right, like, then it becomes incumbent upon me to do the work to change it, right? Like, I'm never necessarily going to move the needle from here to there, but I can move the needle from here to here. You know what I mean? And hopefully get closer and be able to own my stuff, But yeah, I think it's super important to give of our time and our presence and our attention, and to, like, really listen to each other.
1,000%. Yeah, absolutely. So the work we can talk about for so long, and I want to. First off, you mentioned, yeah, some people do non-addicts. I hate the word addicts, but it is a good word. Even reminds me that addiction assassin, I quote her a lot. She says, addicts crave spiritual development and or spiritual growth and personal development. And that's what the work is, which I wish people explained to me. But that the work is doing all that, which strengthens your prefrontal cortex to fight off your midbrain, which is the emotional part of you. And that's where all the cravings come from. And when you get a craving, your cortex shuts down. It literally, and I learned this from her, it shuts down. You're left at the mercy of your midbrain where there is no willpower. There's no rational thinking. That's why I talk about these hypocrites that bash these offenders don't realize they're applying their rational thinking to an irrational thought process, because your midbrain is irrational. It's purely emotional.
Right.
And so this author, I was just listening to her on the podcast. She talked about, her name's Veronica Valley. All humans are called to do this work. It's just most people don't answer the call. But when you have a substance abuse issue, it forces you. And she was talking to Laura McCowan, who I quote all the time. She wrote, "We're the luckiest." It's one of the reasons we're the luckiest. I'm so lucky. I would have had shallow conversations for the rest of my life. I had a girl break up with me 20 years ago because I wasn't deep enough. We're still friends. She now confides in me, talking about the guy she's dating that's not deep enough. I mean, it's great. The work is great. It's hard, but it works. And we can talk about what it entails. But I want to quote, you had a great quote that parenting is not about biology, but about personality. And the best parents have worked through their own trauma and personality defects. So if you want to be a great parent, work on those. But really, if you want to be a great human being, work on those.
Well, and it kind of is the only answer to somebody. Like, I think every alcoholic and addict that I've ever known, which over 30 years and before is a lot, we all fundamentally believe there's something flawed in us, right? There's this innate, I don't fit in, I don't belong, I didn't get the manual that everybody else got, I'm deficient in some sort of way, I'm lacking, right? So if that's our kind of like baseline, right? The only thing that you can do to help a person that has that as a baseline is stuff to do to improve the baseline, right? So like, that's why I think recovery works, is because it's this, one of the best skills I've ever been given in my entire life is inventory, right? Where am I wrong? I'm very good at figuring out what you did wrong. Very good at that. I can spot it at 50 paces, and I can give you a dissertation on why you're doing what you're doing, right? The Enneagram absolutely helped me in being able to kind of archetypes and being like, oh, that's a 1. Okay. They're not, oh my God, it's fascinating. But like, 1s always have to be right. But like doing the work, now 1s don't annoy me nearly as much because I can identify them from across the room. That's a 1. They just need to be right. They're not being a jerk, right? That's their personality. And then I have a much larger bandwidth for them, because I haven't labeled them as a jerk, and I've labeled them instead as a 1. And then I am able to get to some compassion for them. So I think that, like, for me, inventory of myself, why did I just say that? I'll never forget, like, I had this horrible therapy session early in recovery, and I had lost my parking ticket, and I was broke. Like, I had no money, right? And if you lost your parking ticket in DC, like, you were going to have to spend like $40 to get out of the lot, right? And I didn't have $40. Like, I just spent, like, I wasn't going to eat anything but peanut butter and jelly the rest of the week because I spent $75 on this stupid therapy appointment, right? And I was a mess. I was emotionally, and I started telling this poor parking attendant guy this elaborate lie, like, just about the ticket or whatever. I don't even remember if I had to pay the $40 or not, but I get out of the thing and I'm driving back to my house, and I'm like, why did you just do that? Why did you lie like that? Why didn't you just be like, I lost my ticket and I don't have $40? Like, shortest distance between 2 points. Like, why did you give this poor man a 15-minute lie? Right. And I was like, I'm afraid. I was afraid. And it was the first time in my entire life that I connected lying with fear. I was like probably 2 years sober at that time. Never made that connection before, ever. And then I was like, and so that was kind of like a catalyst, like, oh my God, how many other things are motivating my behavior that I don't even know about, that I haven't made those connections? Like if it took me 2 years of recovery to figure this one out, like what else is going on? And then it was kind of like some sort of like, I don't know, like treasure hunt. Like what else is going on in the back of my head that I don't know that's motivating all this maladaptive behavior? Like, and to me, like that's to me one of the best skills of recovery has given me, is the ability to um inventory, not just the bad stuff. Where's Erin wrong? Where's Erin deficient? Where's Erin defective? Right? Like not like that, but like also where am I good? Right? Like inventory isn't negative, right? It's a fact finding. That's it. It's like, I love the analogy that some literature uses about like, it's, you know, when you go through a business, you're looking at saleable goods and non-saleable goods, like what's on the shelves that's still spoiled, that's spoiled, and what's still good. Right. And it's the same thing for me. Like there are things, and I know for me, from doing inventory for 30 years, like there are things that are always their defaults. They're always going to be there. And I know that they're always going to be there because, like, pride, I'll use that one as an example. It kept me sober in the beginning because I was too proud to, I knew if I left, I was never coming back because I was too proud. Pride has also kicked my ass on a number of occasions in a very negative way, but it's one coin, the coin of pride, and there's a positive side and a negative side. And I don't get to eradicate it. Right. I just get to understand when I've tipped too far in a negative direction. Right. And then take the corrective action to right it. Right. So that I, am hopefully neutral. Right. Like that's the goal, is to like to be right sized. Right.
Yes. And inventory is I recognize that as AA jargon, right? Is that one of the steps?
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
it's definitely, a moral inventory of yourself,
Right.
fearless and searching. Yes.
All right. I totally want to talk about those, but we got to hit it after because there's still so much here. It's all so good. One, I don't want to forget to circle back on the whole Andy situation. One thing you mentioned about was his wife feeling grief, and you mentioned the word poison, which reminded me of the whole resentment thing. And I love the quote that resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it'll kill your enemies.
Right.
And that's really gone a long way for me, where I no longer harbor resentment. It's just not worth it. So it's such a good one. And just
well, good on you, because I still harbor resentment. Yeah, I wish. I mean, I have stuff and I do work on it, and then I'll wake up one morning and there it is back again. And I'm like, oh man, more work to do. I'd like to be done. A very wise man, Sandy Beach, once said, there's really two things you can do. You can make amends or you can forgive them. That's it. And I'm like, and those are not good choices often when I'm feeling resentful. Like, I don't want to make an amends and I don't want to forgive them either. But it's like, how long do I want to suffer? How long do I want to drink the poison and get sick? Right.
Yep.
Sometimes still kind of a long time, a lot less time than I used to, but still sometimes I choose to sit in it just because.
Yeah. It's so not worth it. But recently someone sent me an email and something that really annoyed me, and they were wrong. I basically falsely accused me of something without doing the homework to verify it. And I spent hours on an email reply, but I've learned to always keep it in draft form overnight. Unlike the drinking days, you knew not to send it, but you'd still send it. Now leave it in draft. And I never sent it, and because it wasn't worth it. And I was like, what do I care? Eventually I sent a much more concise one, but just like, listen, you're wrong. You didn't do your homework. I don't care if you believe me or not. Just never do this to somebody else without verifying. But I feel so much better, and I let it just fuel me.
Yep.
To have great success. There's a quote about
I tell my clients that all the time, like in divorce situations. I'm like, look, if you feel like you need to answer right away, you need to wait 24 hours. And if in 24 hours, you are sure that you need to respond right then, wait 48. I have never had a client be like, oh, I'm really sorry that I waited to send that text message. No, in the history of the world, no one's ever said that. Right. But I have talked to daily. I talk to people that's like, I really wish that I hadn't sent that. And I'm like, okay, so now you're going to pay me to do a whole bunch of damage control that if you just would have followed my rule of like pause, right?
Yep.
Pause. And then, so.
Yeah, it's so true. My original sobriety community I was in, they had a cutback track. So there were people to just purely want to stay sober and some that were just trying to moderate, which of course we know is just torture and can't be done. But you could listen to those calls as well. And I felt so bad. People would talk about sending those emails or texts and going, thank God those days are over. Thank God. Not waking up to that awful anxiety of who did I text or email last night. And I know it's not always alcoholism. Some do it out of just anger, etc.
Well, anger or, psychological disturbances or,
Right.
whatever. I'm so grateful that back in the day, like if you were going to do something, untowards, like you either had to do it in person when I got sober, or you had to call them on the phone. Like we had answering machines. Like,
Yes.
I'm so grateful there was not text messaging when I was drinking. Oh my God. There'd be a restraining order somewhere, I'm sure.
That is funny. Yeah, in college, our answering machine, we attempted to update daily with a trivia question. I'll never forget, my roommate did one. Do bumbles bounce? Which I'm guessing you wouldn't know, but you'd have to know. That's the abominable snowman from Rudolph is a bumble.
Oh.
And when he landed, he fell off the cliff and he landed and he bounced. So that was a creative question. I've never forgotten that from
That's awesome.
30 years ago.
Those.
Bumbles bounce. Yeah. Good old answer machines. So, by the way, can you hear that noise? It's creeping up a little bit.
I think that's somebody weed whacking.
Oh, I was going to say, it sounds very similar, so no problem. Riverside should weed that noise out.
But
so, good old Andy Byron from Coldplay-gate, the CEO. I suspect in the long run, like for many of us, this will be his rock bottom, and he will come out much better from it in the long run if he does the work. I highly suspect he wasn't hugged enough as a child, that he's never received therapy, or at least proper therapy, or stuck with it. I mean, I've done therapy for 20-something years, but it's never been effective because I wasn't really ready to make it effective. And also I didn't have the most effective therapist. So I do suspect he's never done the work, and this will get him to do the work. And who knows what disorders he might have. I alluded to, and also if their marriage has any chance of being saved, they have to do the work as well. You have another great quote I have to find, but about, let's see. Give me a second. I can always edit this. Here we go. You were talking about infidelity and all that. And it's true. It's so much easier to cheat. This isn't your quote yet, but it's so much my quote. I always say, so much easier to cheat than work on your current relationship. And you say, we could use marriage as a vehicle to deeply explore intimacy, but instead we sideline our spouses and treat them as an afterthought. The primary relationship becomes the last place we dedicate our time, attention, and our lust. And it's so true. You have to do the work. Although really, you got to do the work on yourself first or simultaneously, because you can't love someone else till you love yourself. I'm sure he probably has a lot of self-loathing, as do most people with either.
Or maybe not. Like, I think that's where I feel like the vilification doesn't really do any good, because if somebody comes at me hard, right, my knee-jerk reaction as a human being is to be defensive, right? So the more Andy is vilified, the less chance Andy probably has of looking at Andy, right? Because what Andy's got to do is, people that are vilifying, he's such a horrible person, whatever, like, okay, first of all, it doesn't matter what any of us think of Andy. It only matters what Andy thinks of Andy, right? Like, and going after Andy and being like, oh, whatever, that only can serve to make him double down, right? So like, let's just leave him alone. Like, let's let him go do the work or not do the work. He's the one that's going to reap the consequences of that. Him and his family, right? Like, they're going to reap the consequences of that. I wish that being publicly embarrassed or humiliated, but I mean, alcoholics and addicts, we have a particular perspective on that, because our behavior is often so egregious that, I only learned humility through humiliation. That was the only way I ever had a passing acquaintance with it, right? So, and look at the way that we behave. That last night of my drinking, certainly not the worst night of my drinking. It wasn't even my most egregious behavior, right? So what happened to all those times that happened before that, that I had horrible behavior? And, anybody looking at me could have been like, okay, now she should learn. Like she should learn. Now she'll learn. Didn't learn, didn't learn. And I really think that whether you're struggling with addiction, or whether you're struggling with a personality disorder or mental health issues, or just finding your own moral compass, right? I think it's a lot of work. And I think that it is so much easier to distract yourself with the bright and shiny things, or to just keep doing the habitual behavior, than it is to change, right? Like none of us like the way things are, but none of us want to do the work to change, right? And why is that? Because change is scary, right? Like if I stop being, I remember when I was in therapy a long, long time ago, I was a very angry person. I was just hostile. I was just blocked and pissed off all the time. And my therapist was like, who would you be if I could just magically remove this anger from you? Who would you be? And I'm like, nothing. There's nothing, like, there's nothing underneath that. Right. Luckily for me, like I continued to do the work. Right. And I did find that, oh, guess what? There's a funny person underneath all that pissed off. Like there's a sad person. Like one of the hardest things to do for me is be sad. Right. My son even says, he's like, you get sad mad. I'm devastated. But if you look at me, I just, oh, she's on one. She's on a tear. Like, I don't like feeling, because why? Sad feels very powerless to me. I don't like feeling that way. I want to feel powerful. I want to feel in it. I want to feel like I've got this, right? Being sad and grieving, it is no fun. But like what I have to tell myself, I've been going through some stuff like currently, like right now, today, that is very difficult. And it's like, I have to just keep telling myself, you know what? Like this is going to pass, and it's okay to be down. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel the feelings that are attendant with that. And if there's anything like, that I have to say to Andy is like, feel what you did. Allow that to break your heart for yourself, for your family, for the woman you're having, and for her family, like allow it to break you, because that's where the magic is, right? It's like that's where the horrible things that you did and the places that you fell short become the magic of the catalyst for you to do something different and be a better version of yourself, right? Some people just naturally, they don't have to have those horrible things happen to them. They just know, like, oh, I can do better, and then they set about doing that, right? For the rest of us, it's a struggle, right? But I feel like, it doesn't, the elevator goes to the morgue, right? And we don't all have to get to that. Like we can get off on many floors above that. And hopefully for whatever is going on in that poor, man's world, like I hope that he, that this is a call to action for him. And he's like, okay, like clearly need to look at the way that I'm living my life. And you know what? And maybe his evaluation is I don't see anything wrong with the way I behaved. And guess what? He gets to define that for himself. He sleeps just fine at night. Good for him, right? May not be what's right for me, may not be what's right for you, but like, at the end of the day, like we all have to be accountable to our own inner truth, right? Whatever that is. And just because everybody else says bad, 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 doesn't mean that you have to necessarily think so. And I think that that's what the benefit of inventory is to help you define, where are the guardrails in my life? Like, where are my boundaries, right? Like, is infidelity, is that a bad thing? Maybe it isn't to you, but then don't make vows that say that you're going to behave in a certain way and then don't do them, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. It's all good. Okay, yet another abrupt ending, but had no idea we were going to go as long as we did. So stay tuned for a part 2 of equal length. It's as great as this, if not greater. I hope you enjoyed that. I do want to correct, I said at the intro, it was her blog name wrong, but it's nakedrandomthoughts.com. I'll be in the show notes. And I really hope you enjoyed that. Some of her best quotes that I love, she talked about how men aren't interested in connecting with me, only to me. I thought that was fascinating, and how it helped her almost instruct her employees in terms of office interactions to really increase rapport in the office. I loved her talking about 80s expectations of relationships in 2025. So good. Love saying how, thinking there's something wrong with us. She said, I didn't get the manual everyone else got. And then talked about that she's very good at figuring out what's wrong with other people, not so much with herself. Can't we all relate? And then she got into the Enneagram, which then most women, I suspect, are familiar with, because so many of them, particularly in sobriety, said, what am I? You got to find out. You got to take the test. The one who pushed me most for that, sadly passed from alcohol-related poisoning. She used to ask me all the time, or speculate what I was and tell me to take the test. So in her honor, because this came up on my coaching training recently, I did take the Enneagram test. So, and I will talk about that in a future YouTube video. And perhaps even part 2 of this, I'll allude to my results. And so love that as well. And then one more quote from her was that I only learned humility through humiliation. And humility is definitely something that we learn and gain in recovery. And it's funny, I don't attend many AA in-person meetings as much as I'd like to. And I the one I did semi-recently, the topic was humility, and it was so good. So that'll do it. As always, please like, share, subscribe, or just submit rating. All you got to do, go to the main page on Spotify, Apple, and just submit a rating, ideally 5 stars, and you'd be a hero if you ever were to do a review on Apple. All right, as always, stronger, sober. Thanks for listening and watching.